I'm Rubaiyat from Bangladesh, Mohammad Rubaiyat Sarwar, Managing Director, Innovation Consulting, and the Chairman of the Value Chain Capacity Building Network. So I welcome you all to the webinar organized today. You all can hear me, right? And
Yes.
Kaushik, Anirban, so fantastic. So we have with us four speakers today. We have with me Kaushik Borwa. And so Kaushik is the country director for IFAD in Vietnam. And then we have Anirban Bhumik, he's the country director for Swiss Contact Bangladesh. We have with us Mr. Andrew Wilson, the regional coordinator for market systems from Helvetas. And we have Professor Liu Yonggong from the China Agricultural University. And of course, we have you, the attendees from all around the world. I can see people joining from UK, from Switzerland, from all over Asia. So a very warm welcome to you all. So the way we will conduct this session, we will start with Kaushik. Kaushik will first explain to us from IFAD's perspective how they're evaluating the situation and what measures IFAD is undertaking in different countries. And then we will move on to Anirban, and we will basically, Anirban, we want him to highlight from the field how the value chains in the deep char areas in Bangladesh are being affected, how the farmers are being affected, and what coping mechanisms are being undertaken. And then we will move on to some videos in between. So we will see how the farmers in different countries are being affected. After the video, we'll come back to Andrew and we will discuss about how the programs and what measures can be taken also from the perspective of markets and the private sector. And then we'll move on to Professor Liu Yonggong, and Professor Liu would explain in details his analysis on the value chain impact in agricultural value chains in China. So each speaker will get 10 minutes. I will privately prompt the speakers if there are any questions, and also I will prompt you about the time. So you will all get 10 minutes to speak first. To all the attendees who are there, we will not be able to allow you to speak over the course of this, but we also want to make sure that this session is very interactive. So what I want you to do is, whenever you have a question or a query or a comment, you have the chat box. Please write it down on the chat box. We all can see it. Our panelists can also see it. So as they speak, they will see what questions you're raising. And if they see it relevant, they will take note of it and they will, answer to your question directly. Also, as the moderator, I will take note of your questions and I will prompt the panelists as I feel needed, feel relevant. I hope that is clear to all. So please, to all the attendees, I request you to make use of the chat box very clearly, okay? And then, if we have a few comments or questions from the panels and few very interesting observations, and if you have the time, we might allow some participants to speak, but that would be done by our team who is managing the whole work. So with that being said, I now welcome Mr. Kaushik Borwa from IFAD Vietnam. Kaushik, if you are with me, please, can you start?
Thank you, Rubaiyat. I hope you can hear me clearly. And
very clearly, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to spend about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, giving a brief background. First, I'll give a brief background on the grant or the project that is organizing this webinar, where we are all participating. And second, I will talk briefly about IFAD's response and IFAD's response broadly in Asia. We also have some IFAD participants who may wish to add in the chat, or if their mic can be unmuted, if they wish to add specific points, and the way ahead. So first, about the grant. This is the Value Chain Capacity Building Network grant, which is a project that is financed by IFAD, and it's in partnership with Helvetas and a network of centers of excellence across 7 countries. And we have Rubaiyat who's the key sort of leader from the network of the Centers of Excellence. This grant has been developed to allow these specialist agencies and institutions to support IFAD country programs where feasible, and also partner institutions. It's not about supporting IFAD programs, but it's about supporting rural development projects and rural communities. And we hope this webinar will be the first of many such events where the Value Chain Building Network will build its profile and its network, and eventually we'll be able to connect with many of you, many of the attendees across countries, and provide support to rural development projects. So we are looking forward to the success of these Centers of Excellence. We have made one change in the last 3-4 months, and in the last 2 weeks, not 3-4 months. We had anticipated that there would be changes, but in the last 2 weeks, we saw that the COVID pandemic has already taken a huge toll on rural communities and on our projects. So we have updated the grant in rapid time, in a matter of days, where we have introduced new activities. The new activities include the webinars. This is the first such webinar. The second activity would include in-country assessments of the impact of the COVID pandemic on the agriculture sector and our rural communities. And our partners will be reaching out to IFAD projects and to other agencies to talk about these assessments. And the third is other customized training that we could provide on how to deal with the COVID pandemic. Training or seminars. Training makes it sound too prescriptive, but seminars or networking events. Of course, in the age of social distancing, these trainings may be physical or they may end up being online or virtual sessions like this. So that is about the VCB network, the project that has now hosted this. Coming next to IFAD, just to let you know my background and a bit about IFAD. I'm the IFAD country director for Cambodia. IFAD is an international financial institution. Since I see over 100 attendees now, I won't assume that everyone is familiar with IFAD. We are a small international financial institution. We have a program of about $3 billion of lending over a period of 3 years. Our contributions come from our member governments, and it comes from the reflow from the loans that we give out to our member countries. Like the World Bank or the Asian Development Bank, we do mostly loan finance projects, and it's typically with ministries of agriculture, though we may also work with other ministries, through whom we set up projects with which we support agriculture and rural development. And as we have seen in many sectors, as all of you present here are aware, the COVID pandemic has changed the world and has changed economies drastically. In a matter of weeks, it has changed rural economies and the impact on rural communities drastically. And I'll deal with just a few points that we have captured in IFAD and how we can respond. We have seen, for instance, I won't go into all the figures. There are a lot of studies and assessments, and video won't be the right format. But even as of April, we have seen that there are problems with, first, there's an immediate economic distress. The GDP forecast and the employment forecast are changing by the week. I remember reading some forecasts that say that last week's forecast is now out of date. So GDP and employment forecasts are changing. This is having a direct impact on some export-dependent sectors, maybe such as garments in Asia or tourism in Asia, of course. But through knock-on effects, it is also impacting rural families. So we are seeing loss of employment immediately. We're seeing migrant workers moving back to their villages and to their families. And this is really impacting the sort of multiple income streams that rural families depend on. And now to move to agricultural production, we have seen that it's difficult for small-scale farmers. There is, of course, the health effect and the secondary, I call it secondary economic effect, but the economic effect may end up being larger than the health effect in a lot of countries. We are seeing difficulties for accessing markets. to access inputs, to access seeds, but also to access labor. So all inputs that go into the agricultural production cycle are being impacted. Seeds and inputs, labor, and soon we may see impact on credit, or we're already seeing it, because a lot of, there will be an increase in non-performing assets in financial sectors across Asia, and that will impact how much the rural sector can access finance. And of course, an impact in non-farm incomes, and then eventually in farm incomes. Then what is IFAD doing in this regard? I want to update you that IFAD has almost immediately, I mean, I would say in a matter of a week or two, IFAD across the globe has restructured its programs, has tried to address the impact both in terms of immediate relief where possible, with the caveat that IFAD does not work on emergency relief. Of course, we work on long-term rural development programs, but provide some relief where possible, but more importantly, contribute to recovery efforts and contribute to resilience of rural communities and our value chains. I'll give just a few examples from APR, from the Asia region that IFAD has done. In India, we have other colleagues in the chat now. In India, in the state of Odisha, the IFAD program has helped provided logistical support for the government's distribution of food rations to households below the poverty line. And a lot of IFAD programs have scaled up digital extension, agri inputs, seeds, food storage, longer shelf life for some products. So that is in India. In Bangladesh, IFAD has worked on a key service provider in the rural finance space, that is PKSF, that some of you will be familiar with, to defer the repayments of all micro-enterprise loans. So to ensure that micro-enterprise loans, are afloat for longer. In China, IFAD has focused on poverty-stricken areas, on boosting consumption, on promoting the circulation and marketing of local products, considering restrictions that are in place across provinces. In Pakistan, IFAD has actually reoriented activities with a focus on social distancing, health, and sanitation. In Cambodia, where I work most directly, we have worked on an integration of projects across the entire country program to boost the production of agricultural commodities that have a short production cycle. So this includes green leafy vegetables, and it includes poultry initially. We may also come up on more products very soon. Seeing the impact and looking at how IFAD programs have the capacity to really boost production, preserve incomes, and provide livelihood opportunities for farmers and for migrants, returnees in these times, IFAD has set up a new facility. It's called in fact, news that is fresh, as they say. It's called the Rural Poor Stimulus Facility. That includes $40 million from IFAD to start off, and IFAD will be looking to add about $200 million more. Please these are the initial figures. This is very new, and as you know, a lot of these initiatives are being developed on a day-to-day basis, so some of this might change. The Rural Poor Stimulus Facility, or the RPSF, will have 4 focus areas, and I'll end with this. The first focus area is provision of inputs and basic assets for production. Like I mentioned, this is an immediate short-term provision of inputs and basic assets. This includes for crops, livestock, and fisheries. That is number 1. Number 2 is facilitated access to markets, and that is to support market access in these conditions of restricted movement, which we are witnessing already. It includes providing logistics support, storage support, and facilitating safe and hygienic transport. Number 3, is targeted funds to preserve services, markets, and jobs for poor rural farmers. So these are targeted funds through existing finance institutions. So maybe national rural finance institutions through which IFAD can channel some funds to work with small-scale producers and small and medium enterprises. And number 4, this is crucial in an age of social distancing, is funds to develop digital services around agricultural markets. So it's to provide agriculture-related information or market-related information through digital services. I won't carry on for much longer. I think I've almost run out of my 10 minutes. This is what IFAD has planned so far. And we also have, in fact, just to inform attendees, we also wanted our regional economist who is looking at the regional response across Asia to participate, but on short notice, Mr. Fabrizio Bresciani could not participate. If there are more details needed across the region, we can also liaise and provide details. I'll stop there for now and over to the other panelists, and happy to hear from our attendees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kaushik. I mean, you were very much to the point and to the time, so thank you so much. I have one question before I move on to the other speakers, Kaushik. Are you there? Are you there with me, Kaushik? Kaushik?
Yes, I'm.
Good. The RPSS, is it for all IFAD countries?
It is for all IFAD countries, and I will circulate the web link to you as the coordinator, and you can also pass it to other attendees. It will be, I mean, the priority will of course be to make sure that it's aligned with United Nations response across countries, and to the extent possible to align with IFAD country programs. But it is for all IFAD countries.
Fantastic.
There will be some prioritization of countries, of course, based on need, maybe low-income countries or fragile countries. As we know, this is a global pandemic, and while IFAD, like all global agencies, want to work and help all countries possible, we will have to prioritize based on need and immediate sort of possibility of immediate start off.
Sure.
Thank you.
And in fact, we have with us Fabrizio, so I will probably get back to Fabrizio at a later part of the session, so that he can highlight a few things from his side, Kaushik. But I mean, to take a cue from Kaushik, ladies and gentlemen, you have joined from the whole world. You have heard that the statistics that we are getting from the field is changing super fast. I mean, whatever we know of today is changing tomorrow. And in such a situation, I mean, taking a policy direction is very difficult. But we have heard from Kaushik that, I mean, there are some priority areas that they have identified, and I mean, which includes, for instance, I mean, inputs and I mean, basic access facilitation. He spoke about how IFAD is prioritizing access to markets in restricted conditions to also make sure that the products are reaching the consumers, I mean, while safety and hygienic measures are being taken care of. And also he spoke about how IFAD is, I mean, prioritizing finance, access to finance for the poor. And one of the coping mechanisms that IFAD has promoted, say for instance in Bangladesh, is asking to defer the loan payment on micro enterprises so that the farmers are not being affected immediately. But he also spoke about country-specific measures. Even though IFAD is not a relief organization, he clearly said that they are partnering with the government agencies. For example, in Odisha, they have supported logistical support for food rationing. So also, I've heard from Kaushik that, I mean, there are two challenges. One is the health challenge, but also there is this economic challenge, and we are facing this issue globally. Like, I mean, which one to prioritize? I mean, we have to, if you for sure know that we have to stop the pandemic, there's no rescue from that. But also at the same time, I mean, the economic recovery is also a big priority, and the governments are really struggling to allocate its resources, and that's where development partners come in, I mean, to support the government's efforts. Having said that, I will move to Anirban Bhomik from Bangladesh now. Anirban is working with Swiss Contact, and they have programs in the field. And so Anirban, over to you. If you could highlight what changes you are seeing in Bangladesh and how Swiss Contact is attempting to support the farmers currently and also post-COVID lockdown. Yeah, Anirban, over to you. Are you with us, Anirban?
No, seems to be a challenge with the mute.
Anirban, are you there? Anirban is still facing a challenge. So when we try to get Anirban in, Fabrizio, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Rubaiyat. Yes, I can hear very well. Thanks.
Fantastic, Fabrizio. Kaushik was explaining IFA's measures. So if you could spend a minute to highlight on what he said when I tried to get Anirban back in.
Sorry, Rubaiyat, could you please repeat the question?
So what I was saying is that Kaushik was highlighting what IFAD is undertaking as measures. He spoke about RPSS, and he also briefly explained the country-specific measures. So I wanted to hear from you if you wanted to add a bit more about IFAD's measures, the policies that you are taking to support COVID coping strategy of the agricultural value chains.
Okay, thank you, Rubaiyat. It's a pleasure, and good morning or good afternoon to everyone. In addition to what the facility that was described by Kaushik is going to do, another part of IFAD's effort now is also on joining other UN agencies to assess the extent of the impact of the COVID-19 crisis in the rural sector. Sorry, actually, let me join here with the video as well. So there is now a sort of a mobilization going on in terms of UN agencies trying to team up with governments to better to get a sense of how the lockdown measures are actually impacting on rural households. And that is quite important because in addition to the activities that the repurposing effort that IFAD is undertaking now, and part of the work that the stimulus facility will support, there will also be the need to understand how to intervene in the medium term in rural areas. We need to get a sense of how livelihoods of rural families are being impacted, not only in the very short term, but also over the medium term. The big risk is that this huge income shock that rural households are currently suffering is going to become also an asset shock. And this would have a permanent impact on rural poverty and food insecurity. So we need to better understand the likelihood of this, and if it happens, what is going to be sort of the priority areas where future interventions should be directed in order to support affected households. Let me also add another aspect which is related to expectations of farmers. It's not only about making sure the farmers get access to inputs. Farmers are going to plant also based on their expectations about future prices and ability to market their crops. So it's very important also that we understand how governments, in addition to helping farmers get through this very difficult moment, how they're going to intervene in markets in order to prop up expectations for farmers, in order to motivate them to plant, because this is going to be a major risk that in an environment in which farmers perceive that if they're going to plant, they're not going to be able to sell their crops, or are going to be facing very low prices. Confidence might not be there. So it's also another important aspect of the policy-related work that we are engaging in at the moment.
Fabrizio, fantastic. Fabrizio, fantastic. I think very key points that you have mentioned. One is that how to manage the expectation of the farmer in the future, because they would plant based on expectation of the prices, which is being affected because the low-income population, middle-income population, they are also bleeding. So their consumption capacity is also bleeding. And we know, I mean, from data that the poor-income households have already, stopped consumption or reduced it by 30% or so. So that's one. And also you have raised a very important point about how the income shock leads to asset shock, leads to long-term food insecurity, which leads to, let's say, agri-economy being, let's say, affected. So very important points, which probably I will hand over to Anirban now. He's back. Anirban, can you hear me? So
Yes, I can
Anirban,
hear you.
fantastic. So I think it's a very good time that you're back. So you have heard from Fabrizio, I mean, some very important and essential points that he's talking about. And also you've heard from IFAD the measures that they're taking. So I will ask you to reflect on Bangladesh, how you're seeing this impact on farmers' ability to invest or to even harvest, or the farmers' perceptions and motivations being changing. So over to you, Anirban.
Thank you very much, Rubayat. It is the right moment to talk about this crisis, obviously. I would like to divide my statements into three categories. One, in the first part, I'm going to talk largely about the crisis that we are seeing. And also when we'll be talking about the crisis, we'll be looking at the food security impact, the income impact, and the investment ability impact of the farmers, as well as the rural urban poor. So we will first look at that. The second thing that I will talk about is what is causing that, and what does this crisis tell us about the structural, some of the structural weaknesses of the overall agriculture market system. And the final part, I'll be talking about some of the immediate responses that we are seeing, kind of put my opinion on the effectiveness, possible effectiveness of the immediate responses that we are seeing, and what more can be done in medium term to longer term. So that's how I'm going to divide my statements. So first, I think what we are seeing very clearly is because of, to tackle this pandemic situation, the movement of products and people are being restricted. And the immediate impact of this restriction is immediately felt in the rural economy, because the produce from the rural economy cannot come to the urban markets, and whatever is coming is restricted. So it's in very low in volume. So as a result, we are seeing that in the local market, the price is the price of the produce is plummeting, especially the price of perishable items like vegetables, summer fruits, milk, chicken and egg. So there is this whole income effect on the farmers, because if we look at the farmers' investment decision, a lot of these products are produced from income perspective, because if we look at the agricultural systems and the crop portfolio in Bangladesh, rice is not really a sort of an income generating crop. So the decision to grow rice is largely driven by the food security aspect, while vegetables and other crops bring in the cash into the household. So the flow of cash is getting a serious hit in the rural economy. So the farmers are losing money every day. On the other hand, for the urban poor, since the agriculture market system and the food system is so closely connected, the impact of restricted flow of product from rural markets to urban markets, it's being more felt by the urban poor and the low income segment, and their food security is at risk because the prices are increasing. So and on the other hand, their income is decreasing. The urban poor is facing the double edge of this problem. So their food security is at risk, their income security is at risk. The farmers and the low income group in the rural areas, their impact is yet to be felt directly, but their impact would be felt more on the food security aspect, but that impact would be felt more on the income and future investment route. So as the cash income is declining, the prices are plummeting, farmers' ability to invest in the next crop cycle is getting diminished. So the impact in medium term that we are going to see in Bangladesh, in countries like Bangladesh, where smallholder farmers are the largest in the whole farmer segment, and they are at a very early stage of commercialization, their availability of working capital to pay for agricultural input is going to be extremely limited. So the impact of this immediate crisis would be felt more in the next season, where farmers would have the less ability to invest, And in my estimate, around 45% of the smallholder farmers run the risk of falling back to subsistence farming, where they have started showing the journey towards semi-commercial and commercial farming. So we will see a scarcity. We might see scarcity of food in coming days if their ability to invest continue to diminish. Now, we are now in an interesting time in Bangladesh where harvesting of major rice have started or would start in a week's time. And the impact of lockdown is yet to be seen because there are two dynamics. One is since the movement of people is restricted, the labor movement is restricted. So if the farmers cannot harvest the paddy on time, then we run the risk of losing the crop, because this is also the time for storms and flash floods in some of the areas. So if the paddy is not harvested, then we run the risk of losing those crops. So that is one risk. But on the other hand, what we are seeing is people, the urban day labor have moved from urban areas to rural areas. So that might again increase the availability of labor in the localities. So that might again reduce the wage and the cost of harvesting a bit, but we don't know yet how that situation will pan out. Because on the one hand, we may see crop loss, that risk is there, but on the other hand, since there is lack of income earning opportunities in urban areas, people might stay back in rural areas and work as an agricultural labor, which might reduce the cost. So which again might increase the profitability of the farmers in medium term. But when we talk about the impact of agriculture, we must not forget the impact of COVID and restricted product movement on the traders and other value chain actors. And we are seeing that the retailers are losing their income very fast because the business and the trading volume has gone down significantly. The traders at local level has lost about 10 to 12% of their reserve. And what we see in countries like Bangladesh, where formal financial systems are extremely limited, traders often play a major role in extending credit terms to the farmers for the input. And if they continue to lose their reserve and their income, so their ability to extend credit lines to the farmers, which are all informal, for the next season is going to diminish faster. So these are the changes that we are observing now. Now, this crisis has brought some of the structural issues of agricultural market in Bangladesh back to the surface. So what we are seeing now is the agricultural value chain in Bangladesh is extremely fragmented. So the movement of product is easily disrupted. The formal structured investment is missing. Whatever investment or corporate investment that we have seen has come in limited agro processing, but not in retailing. Farmers have limited to non-existent access to financial services. They are one of the most financially excluded segment of the population. We knew it, but this crisis has brought these challenges back to the surface. The technology-based entrepreneurs and the solutions that we are seeing are still at an early stage, and their presence is small compared to the scale of the challenge or the economy. So the tech entrepreneurs are not enough. We have not seen use of technology enough, both in terms of providing input and extension service, plus also in terms of providing market access, the forward market linkage. And what we have seen over time is the policy narrative was too focused around production and food security. The fiscal and non-fiscal supports in agriculture was still focusing on input market and production technology oriented, but it was not focusing enough on strengthening the forward market linkage, creating a better integrated value chain in our part of the world. And the corporate investments are not flowing into agri-value chains enough to integrate farmers into the commodity market. So the challenges and the stress that we are seeing now is an outcome of a sort of a chronic structural problems that had been persisting and lack of long-term investment in those areas. Now I'll be talking about the immediate responses that we are seeing in Bangladesh to overcome this challenge. So government had allocated fund as part of the stimulus package and that would be activated largely through the refinancing mechanism that the central bank has been operating through the banks. And in my view, the stimulus package is an inappropriate solution, because the execution of this refinancing mechanism and making sure that this money reaches the hand of the farmers is going to be a major challenge, because farmers are anyway out of the formal financial system. The smallholder farmers are least likely to benefit from this package. Some of the more structured, more entrepreneurial farmers in poultry industry, in dairy industries are likely to get the benefit, but the crop sector is likely to miss out, and these loans are not going to work because of the structural problems within the financial system in extending the agricultural credit. I don't know whether the microfinance institutions would be eligible to access those refinancing mechanisms. Probably no, because I did not find that in the policy document. So if that's they are not utilized, then this is going to be a missed opportunity. A government has allocated more fund in the form of fertilizer subsidy, which is a very traditional response, and again it is not going to deal with the immediate crisis of lack of cash in the hands of the farmer. Government has decided to buy additional 200 metric ton of paddy. If they can buy it from the farmers, I think that is going to give the money back to the farmers, and I think that is likely to be more effective if government can spend more money and buy more paddy directly from the farmers, because this would give money directly to the farmers, and that would increase their ability to invest in the next season, in the next crop cycle. So that is much needed. But again, execution had been a challenge. Last year we have seen execution of these paddy purchase had not been very efficiently done. So in case of Bangladesh, the main challenges, one of the main challenges lie in good execution of some of these measures. Now, in terms of managing the labor movement is going to be a challenge, and we are seeing very little is being done. Safe and hygienic logistics service for facilitating product movements, that would be necessary if the lockdown or the holiday continues beyond the first week of May, because the products will not come. So that needs to be done. And the other immediate response that the government can do, and which we are not seeing, is extending the open market operation into vegetables and other perishable products. So if government is running various humanitarian response work, giving away food, within that food basket, if government can start buying perishables from the local market and include those vegetables, milk, eggs into the food relief program, that will help keep the price stable, and that would also improve the dietary diversity of the low-income people, which is needed to improve the immunity. So we are not seeing that. We have seen some effort from the NGOs. We have seen some effort from the local civil society to buy some vegetables and redistribute them to low-income group, but we are not seeing that at scale. So we need to, maybe government can think of extending that, because that again would take the money back to the economy. Because at this stage, in the immediate term, I think the main challenge is how to give the money back, get cash into the hands of the farmers, so that they can meet some of their immediate needs, as well as they can have cash to be able for investing in the next cycle. Now, in terms from the response to recovery, there needs to be a kind of more coordinated effort, which I'm not aware whether the government is thinking, because if the government wants to open up the whole market, the forward market process needs to be managed. The physical market needs to be managed properly. And there is a very strong need for a public-private partnership, especially the local government institution needs to work very closely with the market committees and the market management committees to install better hygiene practice, water sanitation facilities. They need to think of how to manage crowd and traffic so that they can avoid resurgence of the second wave, or they can minimize the contamination, because as soon as the markets are open, there will be huge flow of people. And Bangladesh is a very densely populated country. So if the government and private sector does not work together to think of gradual opening up and managing the marketplaces in a more hygienic way, then we run the risk of another public health crisis or resurgence of the second wave. And then I think in the medium term, public sector, there is a need to work with tech-based aggregation platforms very quickly, because I think we are seeing that they need to be supported. They need to be supported to expand their operation, and they can kind of offer a solution to avoid the resurgence of the second wave of pandemic. And in the medium to long term, I think we see the need to support the forward market actors to better integrate the supply chain. So that's where the whole idea of a comprehensive value chain for better collaboration of actors from different industries. We see the need to facilitate more structured and large investment in food and agri-retailing business. We see the need for a reform of agricultural financing system, because if the farmers are continue to remain out of the formal financial network, any amount of financial stimulus will not be effective, because it will just not reach. And the need to invest, facilitate investment in storage and cold chain is becoming paramount. So in summary, in medium to long term, I think there is a need to focus more on strengthening the forward market actors in the value chain if we are to support a more resilient agriculture production system and more resilient farmers, because the farmers market signaling and the expectation also would work better when they are better integrated and there is less asymmetry of information. And I will stop there.
Rubaiyat, sorry, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. So Anirban, thank you so much for the great speech. And I was saying that I was struggling to find out which points to re-highlight. Only the issue is we did not see you. Your video was not there. But I mean, you revealed some great points. And as I was reading from Julian, he said stress reveals cracks. And you highlighted how the cracks are being revealed in the agri-value chains. But I think you highlighted the importance of looking into the trade system. And let's say in a country like Bangladesh, if the traders are failing, then that would impact the informal financing in the agricultural value chains. You also highlighted the significance of public-private partnership, especially of engaging the local governments, market management committees. You highlighted the need for, let's say, measures, the fiscal policies, stimulus might not reach the farmers, so we need to think about it. You have laid down the foundation for some short-term, long-term, and mid-term interventions, and there were many great ideas. And I will get back to Andrew a little after, but before I go to Andrew, we will if you're there, please start the videos so that we can see that.
สบายดีน้องเสื้อน้อยเป็นสาวเกษตรกรอยู่บ้านหอยเมืองคูนแข่งเสียงขวางโดยตั้งแต่มีข่าวพยาธิระบาดในประชาชนเขาเจ้ากะย้านบ่กล้าออกเงินไปซื้อเครื่องซื้อของเนี่ยผักเฮาก็บ่ได้ขายเพราะว่าแม่ค้าอยู่ตลาดเขาเจ้าบ่มาตลาดบ่มาขายเครื่องเลยตลาดเขาเจ้าบ่ได้ปิดแต่ว่าแม่ค้าอยู่ในตลาดมันเขาเจ้าปิดร้านเองปกติหันเขาเจ้าซื้อไปต่างแข่งก็คือไปหลวงพระบางนั่นมื้อละ6เที่ยวแล้วก็ไปปักสันหันอาทิตย์นึง3เที่ยวแล้วก็เฮาส่งเวียงแน่ส่งเวียงหันแล้วแต่ส่งตามออเดอร์เขาเจ้าสั่งเขาก็จึงส่งแล้วก็มีแม่ค้าส่งอยู่ต ตลาดภายในสิงห์ขวางนี่มีมื้อนึงมีประมาณ6-7 คันเดี๋ยวนี้เลยแบบเดี๋ยวนี้บ่มีเลยมื้อนึงออกบ่ฮอด100,000บ่ฮอดต้นซ้ำราคากระตกราคามื้อนึง6,000 กีบก็บ่มีไผมาซื้อสลายมีแต่ชาวบ้านแถวใกล้ๆนี่เขามาซื้อไปเกลือไก่ตะกี้ลงมาก่อนบ่มีคุณตะกี้มัน30,000 35,000ช่วงแพงสุดก็60,000อยู่เฮือนเลี้ยงงัวก็เอาไปเกลืองัวเกลือไก่โดยอันนึงก็แม่นให้รัฐเสนอให้รัฐบาลมาซื้อพักน้ำชาวสวนเนาะแล้วก็ไปแจกจ่ายให้กับประชาชนที่กระเจ้าอยู่บ้านกระเจ้าบ่กล้าออกจากบ้านเลยเพราะว่าพักเฮาก็ราคาบ่ได้แพงพออันได้ขายพอได้ต้นทุนคืนกันอย่างดีนะอันที่สองก็เสนอให้รัฐบาลเนาะช่วยสร้างสางดินที่ว่าเฮาสามารถเก็บพักได้หลายแล้วก็เก็บไว้ได้ดนเพื่อว่าเฮาจะเก็บไว้ในยามที่มันบ่ได้ขายแต่ว่าโตไปถ้าเฮาผลิตบ่ได้เฮาก็มีพักขายอยู่ก็อยากให้เพิ่นช่วยเรื่องปลูกมะม่วงให้ชาวสวนเฮารู้จักการแปรรูปพักเนาะก็คือพักเอาไปเฮ็ดพักแห้งอบแห้งคือมักเล่นก็เอาไปรูปเป็นซอสมักเล่นเพราะว่าทุกมื้อนี้เฮายังซื้อเครื่องพวกนี้จากประเทศเพื่อนบ้าน
Thank you. Jose, are we going to see another video?
Yes, I'm trying to find it because I couldn't do the both at the same time.
That's okay. But I think, I mean, we want to thank Asian Farmers Association for this video. And also we want to thank, I mean, our partners who are bringing this information out directly from the field. But you're seeing the farmer is talking very clearly about how the impact is on not being able to sell. And she was emphasizing on the need for processing. And I think Anirban also highlighted the fact that in the midterm, we will need storage and cold chain facilities to come up. And he was also talking about I mean, how digital aggregation would become key in the post-COVID situation. I think, I mean, that's the situation across Asia, that digital aggregation is not probably still that strong, but there is now a very strong need to make that strong enough so that the farmers are connected to the consumers more directly. I think we are facing a difficulty on getting the video. I mean, would you need more time, Jose?
No, I can put it. I can put it.
Rubai.
Yes, yes. Go ahead. Go ahead, on you.
Rubai, it is.
मैं कामरा मम्मने से हूँ। इस बार हमें खेती की फसल के लिए बहुत ही परेशानी आई। जैसे क्या गेहूं की फसल हुई पर उसमें हमें एक बार बारिश की वजह से भी लोगों को नुकसान हुआ है, हमें भी नुकसान हुआ है। और गेहूं कटवाई के लिए हमें बहुत जैसे लोग मजदूर नहीं मिल रहे थे, मजदूर मिलने के लिए बोल रहे थे कि हम नहीं आएंगे। तो हमने एक दो मजदूर से लेके उनको सेफ्टी से रुमाल बांध के मुंह पे बोला और हमने सुरक्षित होकर करवाने के लिए बोला, तब उन्होंने आने के लिए। उसके बाद थ्रेसर की मशीन आने के लिए ना बोल रहे थे, लोग उधर घूम रहे हैं थ्रेसर की मशीन के लिए, पर लोग बोल रहे हैं हम गेहूँ निकलवाए कैसे। थ्रेसर वाले एक दो जन आए, गेहूँ निकलवाए, वहाँ से हम यहाँ लाए। इस बार हमें गेहूँ की फसल की बहुत ही परेशानी हो गई है। पर वो तो आ गए, पर गरीब लोग जो बेचारे बिल्कुल बहनें जो अकेली हैं, उनके घर वाले बाहर काम पे गए, वो बहनें कैसे करेगी, क्योंकि उनके घर वाले वहाँ फंस गए बॉम्बे नौकरी में और यह बहनें अकेली कर करके थक गई है। इसलिए इस बार बहनों को बहुत ही परेशानी पड़ी है। पर इस बहनों का कुछ करना पड़ेगा। सरकार से विनती है कि उनकी मदद करें। और हमने सुना भी है कि बहनों के खाते में पैसे भी डाले जा रहे हैं और गेहूँ और चावल देने की भी मंजूरी की गई। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, Jose. Anirban, I mean, you wanted to say something, so over to you.
No, sorry. It is a fascinating discussion, but unfortunately, I'll have to leave because I've got another meeting starting in 5 minutes. So
okay.
Please continue the conversation, and I will quietly leave when it's time for me to leave.
Anirban, just before you leave, dear audience, I mean, if you have any question for Anirban, please drop it here, and we'll make sure to channel it to Anirban, and in our digest, we'll make sure to respond to your question. You will all receive a digest on the discussion that we're having. So Anirban, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Rubaiyat. Thanks for the invitation, and I will leave quietly when it's time for me to leave. Please continue.
Okay, Andrew, I'm over to you. So, so far we have been hearing some fascinating discussion about the challenges, about the cracks that are being revealed. And I'm pretty sure the situation is similar across the region. So if you can highlight what you are seeing in the region and how you are prioritizing the needs. I think that's essential to understand. What are the priorities? How should we attend to those needs? So Andrew, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, and if it's okay, I prepared a couple of things to structure the discussion, or so you don't have to just look at me talking in my TV room of my house where I'm trapped. So I will share screen and. Can everyone see this?
We can, it is gone, Andrew. Can you try again?
Okay.
Or I can also share it, Andrew.
Okay, if you don't mind, that would be very good. Okay, so thank you for asking me to speak. I run a program that covers Vietnam, Laos, and does export promotion. And with another small part of my time, also act as a market systems advisor to various projects run by Habitats across the region. And from that, like my main program, we're working on sustainably produced natural ingredients, which are primarily non-perishable, things that are going into food and personal care. And we work with companies mostly on sustainable and efficient supply chains. And we work with associations and others on export promotion. So covering 3 countries, we have about 35, well, closer to 40 now, and 4 different industry associations in Vietnam. And we see quite some big differences, especially between Vietnam, where things are really, managed by government.
Andrew, sorry, can you hold a little bit, Andrew? Sorry, there's a technical problem. Also, you need to stop your mic. You need to stop your mic so that we can hear Andrew. Otherwise, we're having an echo. So, Jose, please shut down your mic. Okay.
Are we okay now?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. Now we see 3 types of disruptions that are not. Oh, I still hear an echo. Not evenly spread across the 3 countries. And the first thing that we saw, and the most urgent, was about worker supply chain health and safety and continuity of operations. The second was financial stability and access to support programs. So the financial stability of both echoing. So the producer side and the companies that are buying, so the traders. And then we've seen some modest disruption in sales channels, but bigger issues with market development. Now, the differences between the countries that I'm referring to are that the companies in Vietnam are much more prepared with worker health and safety things that then allow them continuity of business. And I'd use an example up in the northern areas where cinnamon harvesting is going on right now. Companies that have local operations and have well-structured health and safety plans are still being allowed to go in and purchase from their suppliers, where ones that do not have those in place are not. So even, we still have a point of attack where we can look to improve things and maintain what is moving between suppliers, processors, and markets. Now, I'd like to just focus in a little bit on Myanmar, and particularly the tea sector, although we have similar things happening. There, the partners were noticeably less prepared, and that there was really no COVID-related health and safety practices put in place in the period from January till end of March, like there was in some other countries. And there was a need for both hard and soft infrastructure. So both the planning of how to respond to keep businesses operating and worker health and safety taken care of, and then the hard infrastructure of the supplies, personal protective equipment, and so forth that are needed to implement that both in the supply chains and in the processing. And there was really a high risk that businesses would not be able to continue going out to buy or having producers come in to sell to them in the very peak season when the highest value is produced in the dry season. Because of both outbreaks in the supply chain or because of actions to control potential outbreaks. Now, when we started thinking about this, the thing that our analysis was that companies have an incentive to introduce these protective practices, but didn't have the technical skills or the supplies. And when we had to look back at our market system, actually, all of a sudden, a new player became very, very important, and that was public health officials. So we had to return to our kind of broader system, and with the help and really the leadership of companies and their associations, identified that public health officials were really interested to get the word out, but didn't have the human resources to spread their technical capacities on training and information. So practically, what we've done with the tea sector in Myanmar and also in some other areas in other countries is to work through the Tea Association and with companies have a TOT for public health or health trainings and COVID response by public health officials to workers from companies and from the association. And these trainees will go back and will basically train workforces and especially the people who then go out to buy product from the producers and the producers themselves. So basically put good practices in that will make sure that A, there's not, or outbreaks are reduced, and B, that government is not forced to shut some of the fooding down preventatively because these good practices are in place. So our one-time contribution to this was essentially some financial help for the initial supplies of personal protective equipment, sanitizing supplies, and some posters and things. And everything else was more or less done by these different market systems actors. And it's ongoing now. We don't have results yet left to be able to say how this will turn out, but we're quite hopeful, and so far it seems that our partners in the region are happy with that. I would just add that, you know, we don't also have good quantitative data. You know, this was asked of me when we were preparing this presentation, and honestly, we don't have the capacities internally to prepare the kind of meaningful data on trade volumes or what is moving or not, simply because it's changing every day. What we do have is qualitative information from our partners that for the types of things that we are dealing with, which are export oriented, there is a lot of delays going on to purchases, but that they're not sure exactly how this will work out. And we're dealing primarily with non-perishables. So there is that advantage, but with a 6-week give or take, lag between when product is shipped and when it arrives in destination markets. We're only now starting to see the end of the supply that was sent before COVID struck for the work that we're doing. And I think we can expect to see more understanding of what does it all mean, what's going to really happen over the next 6 to 8 weeks as supply chain, like as the pipeline empties, essentially. So I leave it there. I see it's 4 o'clock already, and hand it over to you, Rubia.
Thank you, Andrew. I mean, 2 important points that I took out from your discussion. It was very interesting because you were highlighting on the need of, let's say, or interconnectedness between the public health market system and the agricultural market systems now. I mean, before it was not a reality. I mean, we were thinking of environmental market systems and agri-market systems connection, but now, I mean, suddenly, then, I mean, public health market systems is connected to the agricultural market systems. So how are all of a sudden, and how are we assessing it, and how are we basically, I mean, responding to it is an important point that you raised. But also you talked about, let's say, I mean, how do we make decision when everything is changing every day, every other day? A point that Kaushik was raising, and we don't have a mechanism to collect, analyze the information on a weekly basis, if I may say. I mean, the quantitative data. So, so how do we respond to that? I think I'll get back to IFAD later on this question. But I mean, very interesting point on that interconnectedness between public health and agriculture market systems. As I was going through your discussion, there was also some interesting point that was coming up in the chat room, and one of that being, I mean, Kuan Operman, if I have, I mean, pronounced your name correctly, you're saying that in Bangladesh, you are working with one of the leading phone companies to create a WhatsApp type app in Bengali so that the trainings and voice messages could be sent to farmers. It's very interesting because we can't mobilize people in the field. So we are talking about, let's say, how projects can remain relevant and continue to support the farmers in this type of situation. But also to point to you, I mean, our data is showing that the low-income population has completely cut down on their talk time cost as a coping mechanism. So if they're cutting down on their talk time cost, I mean, they're also not going to purchase internet. If they're not purchasing internet, how are you going to, let's say, I mean, use this kind of mechanisms? So there's all of these questions that are cropping up every other day. So, I mean, having said that, I will go to Dr. Professor Liu from China Agricultural University. And Dr. Liu has been analyzing the market conditions in China. And he will highlight to us how China, where it all started, is coping up. Dr. Liu.
Thank you, Rubaiyat, and also thanks to the coordinators, organizers of this webinar. I think this is very, very important events talking about the impact of COVID-19 on agriculture, on value chain, and so on. So as you know, China has been affected severely by the COVID-19. Not only agriculture, not only agricultural value chain, but also the overall national economy. So I think in this regards, I'd like to highlight that the agricultural development in China depends on the national economic development, depends on the governmental financial support. Therefore, I think if we talk about the impact on the agricultural value chain, I'd like to highlight that the government in China has played very, very strong role in mitigate the impact on the agricultural value chain. At the same time, also the very severe impact on poverty reduction in China. Okay, so I'm just sharing the opinions, the previous colleagues' opinion, and presented cases and so on. Now I want to focus on to highlight some of the very, very significant impact on the Chinese agricultural value chain, and also highlight how the government, the enterprises, and also some of the farmers' organizations, cooperatives, and so on reacted to cope the impact. Okay, so Jose, can I directly share my PPT on the screen? Jose?
Yes, I think you can, yep.
Okay.
Or otherwise I have it also ready, but.
Okay, let me elaborate that by myself, okay?
Okay.
Okay, okay. So, yeah, I prepared quite a large amount of slides, but I will start from the third part, impact of COVID-19 on Chinese agricultural value chain. Actually, generally, the impact on agricultural value chain is actually profound and impacted the all sections of the agricultural value chain. Therefore, I'd like to elaborate very quickly through the value chain, okay? So first is the production means supply market. Second is on-farm production. Third is the post-harvest, the storage and processing, logistic transportation, and then the marketing and supply chain. So now let me elaborate. Okay, impact on the production means supply. The major impact on the production means supply due to the lockdown and travel restriction resulted in the workers shortage or labor shortage for the production factory of the agricultural materials. This is already reported almost in all provinces in China, okay? Particularly during the period from February and the whole March, okay? So such kind of shortage of production of the workers resulted in the reduce the production capacity, okay? Because some of the factories shut down, closed down because the lockdown and lack of the workers. So the further reduce the market supply, okay? Because of the transportation, restricted transportation. So even they have some quite large amount of the materials and so on, but cannot transport it to the market, to the marketplace. So this is somehow the situation, the production mean supply, okay? So this result actually, this affect the shortage of fertilizers, seeds and seedlings, chemicals, drugs, machineries, and feedstuff for livestock, and then. So this is a very, very significant impact on the production side, okay? So this is the first. And impact on the crops production. So my observation, the impact on crops production, on grain crops production is not so severe. It's quite moderate, because in northern China, most of the farming activity not yet started. In southern China, some of the paddy rice field is already prepared and so on. More or less, farmers managed to plant the paddy rice and so on in southern China, okay? So regard the winter crops, for example, winter wheat is a major summer crops, is very, very less affected, okay? Spring planting in southern China started already in later February, And from the TV program and so on, we cannot observe very severe impact on the crops production. Okay, so this is however, for some of the farms, shortage of laborers in the field for serving and for managing the winter crops and so on and so forth appears. However, that's not so severe. Okay. So now the impact on the vegetable and horticulture production is more severe because the lockdown of the market value chain and so on. So simply the farmers cannot sell the products. So this resulted in the overstock of the finished products or harvested products and so on and so forth. Okay. And then the impact on aquaculture, on fishery is more severe. Particularly, this is reported in Hubei province, where the COVID-19 appears firstly, okay? So aqua farms overstocked, and the close up of the local market for the aqua products and so on, for example, in Qianjiang County of Hubei, reported very severe. So tremendous reduction of the market sale, particularly during the February and March. After reopening, so recovery starts in the beginning of April. So consumers market is also almost zero, reduced to zero, okay? So there are huge financial economic losses in the aquaculture, particularly in southern China, okay? So the impact on pig production. So African swine fever already affected the Chinese pork production, swine production, by about 40%. Now, plus the impact of the COVID-19, this will affect the market recovery, the production recovery. So my personal estimation, the full recovery to the previous production capacity will need more 1 or 1.5 years, okay? So in addition, the slaughter factory is also locked down, is also closed up due to the outbreak of the pandemics and so on. So this is an impact on the pig production. So impact on the poultry production is also very significant because of the shortage of feedstuff, overstock due to the lockdown of the transportation to the marketplace, particularly the eggs, and also entirely closed down of the local live birds trade market, wholesale market, in all over China, in 27 provinces. This affected the marketing, okay? Stopped the slaughter plant, also for the poultry and broilers and so on. So the price reduced by 20 to 30%, okay? So that's the impact. So also impact on agricultural product processing sector, mostly because of the shortage of labor and also lockdown of the logistical transportation of the products to the market, to the consumer's market. So this is an impact on agricultural processing. Impact on the marketing. So quite a lot of retail shops for vegetable, for fruit and so on, closed down. So the total logistic supply chain actually in Hubei, for example, is entirely broken down. So it depends on the special channel for supplying to the communities, consumers, and so on. So that is the impact on the market. Okay, now I prepared some of the slides impact regarding the impact on IFAD China product. So currently, IFAD still have 5 ongoing projects, 1 pipeline project in China. So in general, the outbreak of the pandemics affected the implementation of the project in the first quarter of this year. So that means some of the activities couldn't be implemented timely according to the schedule and so on and so forth. So actually all IFAD China project planned or incorporated the component of supporting marketing cooperatives and agro enterprises in the ongoing project, okay? So supporting the infrastructure, supporting the processing, storage facilities and so on, also supporting some of the marketing development activities of the cooperatives or selected enterprises and so on. So in this regards, I will say the long-term impact on IFAD China project is not so severe, okay? So this is the impact on the IFAD China project. So next point I'd like to highlight, what about the response actions for mitigating the impact in terms of government, in terms of the state-owned enterprises, in terms of the private enterprises in China, okay? So actually, government has played very, very strong role, very, I will say, dominant role in mitigating the impact. Firstly, the financial support to ensure the food security and poverty reduction. So many loans and governmental grant and financial support allocated to ensure the food security, to ensure the poverty reduction. So China is now in the final year for eliminating the absolute poverty. So this is somehow the financial support ensured the financial means for mitigating the impact. So technical support, strengthened farm service to the winter crops, and ensure the timely spring planting. Also, Ministry of Agriculture, the national technology centers and so on, hosted the national conference, teleconference and so on, encouraged the field officials, technicians, agricultural technicians to go into the field, even during the pandemic outbreak, to help farmers, okay? So this is somehow the governmental role. And also the government has endorsed a very, very strong intervention to ensure the market chain, okay? So through the advertisements, through the reserve, put the reserve of the pork, beef, and other food and so on to the market. So this is a very important governmental role, okay? Also for the food security, particularly the food supply, government also established a very, very sophisticated system for delivery of the food and also for processing all the agricultural products. So this is the governmental role. Secondly, the state-owned enterprises in China, particularly Sinochem Agriculture, China Food Corporation, China National Agricultural Development Corporation, and so on and so forth, they have played very, very strong role in mitigating the impact on agricultural value chain. Okay, what kind of role they have played? So supply the production means to the cooperative, to the farmers, purchasing the products from the cooperatives, processing the products because they have such kind of capacity, maintaining the value chain, the market chain, and also deliver the technical services, and so on and so forth. So this is the role of the state-owned enterprises. Private enterprises, e-commerce companies like Alibaba, like Jingdong, and also their e-commerce channeling or platform played very, very strong role in the value chain supply, in the supply, production supply, particularly during the outbreak of the pandemics. So in addition, there are about 500 agricultural animal husbandry companies in China, private, New Hopes for feedstuff, and Dabeinong for feedstuff and livestock and so on. They have already established their own value chain. They cooperated with the farmers' cooperatives. They have established their production base in the per areas and so on and so forth. So during the outbreak of the emergency, so they plays very, very strong role. So some of the experience about China's actions, interventions, I will say, as I said, government played very powerful role and also mobilized the social participation, engagement of enterprises, and engagement of the private enterprises, and so on and so forth. I say this is the irreplaceable role of the government, okay? So also the government strengthened the horizontal and vertical coordination cooperation. For example, the so-called joint prevention control mechanism consists of different ministries. For example, Ministry of Agriculture, National Reform and Planning Committee, and Ministry of Commerce, Poverty Reduction Office, and so on, related ministries. They strengthen the coordination, cooperation, and the joint action to support, okay? Then the interprovincial cooperation. So Hubei is the area severely affected by the epidemic.
Sorry, Dr. Liu, can you hear me, Dr. Liu?
Yes. I think this is more than 10 minutes already.
Yeah, I mean, the experience on the provincial economies, I think that would be important, but because, I mean, Andrew would have to leave, I mean, can we just hold on here? Because you have pointed out some very strong messages about the China government and the cooperation and the vertical and horizontal cooperations. And also you have pointed out some important points about the private sector participation, but you have emphasized on the central government's role. And what I can clearly see is that, I mean, China has responded pretty fast on mitigating, on assessing the risk and mitigating the risk. And from your discussion so far, have come out very clearly. So, I mean, I'm presuming that next slides are on the provincial cooperation. We'll be sending your slide to everyone for their, let's say, discussion for their usage, so they can see that. But now I would go on to Fabrizio. He wanted to respond to a few questions, and also Kaushik, because they'll be leaving. So Andrew and Kaushik, can you come first? Yes. So Andrew, I mean, do you want to take one of the questions and Kaushik as well, because you'll be leaving in 5 minutes.
If I may, I just actually responded to something in a chat about needing to act quickly. And it's true, we need to act quickly, but we also need to think and not just act without, just to react. It needs to be actually acting and taking also the long-term perspective, because also we can do harm if we just jump into things without thinking about it. So my observation is, and I would give compliments to the donor I work with, which is the government of Switzerland and SECO. When you have trust and flexibility between the people who pay and the people who do, this can actually work.
Thank you, Andrew. I mean, very well pointed that we have to take measured approach and we should not jump into interventions all too fast. I mean, that's also a very important point. Kaushik, are you there? Kaushik? Okay, Fabrizio, no. Over to you.
Thank you. Very interesting presentations. I would like to take on the question regarding export restrictions. In fact, actually, I must say that when one day a colleague of mine sent me a note from Vietnam saying that the government of Vietnam was holding on to rice exports without giving further details of when these would be released or allowed. My memory went back to 2007, 2008, when Philippines entered into panic buying of rice, and as we all know, this resulted in a spike in the international price of rice, which led to the food price crisis, as is known, at least for the rice sector. Luckily, well, first of all, I think there is a big consensus among the international research centers and international agencies working in agriculture that it's vital to keep trade channels as functioning as well as possible. This has also been underlined by a position taken by the ministers of agriculture in ASEAN through a joint declaration. There is a big concern, of course, that disruptions in international trade would simply aggravate the current status of issues affecting agriculture in countries across Asia, well, globally, of course. We heard that it's not only about moving or trading crops or trading agricultural products, but it's also about trading agricultural inputs. So very important that we keep an eye on that as well. What made a difference this time in face of Vietnam's decision to hold on to the stocks is that rice trade policy has changed in the Philippines. We should be giving a big thanks to the government of the Philippines for undertaking a major reform in rice trade that actually resulted in a different response. So government in the Philippines has been actually taking steps in terms of stepping up the procurement of domestic rice. And anyways, they were in a comfort position in terms of strategic reserves in rice. And basically there was no need for to rush to the market and buy big quantities of rice, which would have caused then a major tension on the international market for rice. Having said that, we do observe tensions on prices of wheat, soybeans, and rice. There has been a little bit of an increase during the last few weeks, but this is to be expected in face of the disruptions in logistics across the world. So if you look at futures prices, for example, in commodities like cacao, or coffee, you see that markets are expecting prices to increase in the short term, but actually they're looking at prices declining over the medium term, signal that no, the disruptions are limited really to logistics, and these are expected to be overcome, hopefully. Now, in responses over the medium and short term, I think, of course, the focus now is going to be on how to equip the agricultural sectors in a way that can become more resilient to this type of shocks. In Europe, there is a lot of discussion about a second wave of COVID-19 happening in autumn, and I would be curious to see what epidemiologists are predicting in other countries in Asia. So very important that as we move forward with the response, we're also preparing the agricultural sector, farmers, and the institutions to manage potential lockdowns that might have to be reinstated in the future. And we don't know very much still about the likelihood of this scenario. So very important that we actually invest and we work with the epidemiologists to better understand what is going to be the dynamics of the disease of the COVID-19 in the medium term. In the longer term, a question is related to the ability to for the agricultural ministers and for governments to provide a swifter response like the one that we have been seeing happening in China. And actually, rather than making a statement here, a question that I would like to pose to actually Dr. Liu is whether China's move towards income transfers to farmers can actually be used as a way to increase the flexibility of responses to future shocks. Now, we know China has been developing farmers registries that allow linking or basically disbursing to farmers support that has been replacing more traditional forms of agricultural support. And now question is the government using this income support programs to actually help easing the liquidity issues that farmers are facing and improving their ability to recover from the shock. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Dr. Liu, before I move on to you, to all the attendees, we'll be finishing in next 5 to 7 minutes. So, but thank you, Fabrizio, for reflecting on this important issue. And you were talking about the short-term, long-term, and mid-term, and the longer-term measures. And I think you also highlighted the importance of the public health system and the agricultural market systems coming together again, because if the second wave of COVID-19 is coming up, and we need to be prepared, right? We need to now understand how to, let's say, keep the logistics moving, while also ensuring, let's say, the public health risks are minimized, so that, the control that we have locked, that we are in, because we don't know how to mitigate it, can be probably, lessened. So we don't have such stricter controls anymore if the second wave is coming up. And that, leads to Dr. Liu. Fabrizio was asking you, you were highlighting on the China's experience. So the question is, we know that China is very centrally governed, and the way China has, let's say, implemented some of these measures, as he was talking about the income transfer. How do you see other countries can adopt the same measures? Over to you, Dr. Liu.
I think Chinese financial support, governmental financial support to poverty reduction through transfer, through transfer the financial means to the individual farmers is implemented in the poverty reduction program. Okay, so however, my experience in China, those kind of financial support is translated into the household share into the cooperatives or into the agricultural enterprises. That means through cooperation or participation into the cooperatives, individual farmers can increase their resilience to such kind of market crisis and so on and so forth. So this is a Chinese experience. However, I don't think that this can be learned by other countries, because I don't know whether your country has such kind of financial support. This governmental grant, not loan, just give to the individual farmers. So this is a Chinese modality.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. I think, also I have, taken note of some points related to the power dynamics in the value chains and how this will shape up. I think it's a very important question, because in fragmented value chains like the ones that we are in, the power dynamics are in interplay, right? Fabrizio, maybe, it's an economics question as well, because in agricultural value chains, the input traders, the finance that they put into the farmers, the output traders, the advances that they make, these all kind of, let's say, dictate how the prices are governed. And we are seeing depletion of value across the value chain. It's not only the farmers. So which means these traders, they are also affected, and their ability to finance the farmers is affected. So which in turn affects the farmers' ability to produce and market. So I think, we are facing a completely new era of let's say, value chain governance. And if the second wave of COVID-19 is a reality, then I think, this all will come up as a hard heat to all of us, working on agriculture value chain interventions. I do not want a direct answer right away, right now on this, but I wanted to highlight these points to all of you. As I said, we'll be finishing in 5 minutes. It's almost there. I just wanted to highlight to all of you that our network, Value Chain Capacity Building Network, would be bringing on to you some more, webinars related to the specifics. Some of the discussions that we have had today, this will be taken up as a specific issues to talk about in coming days, and we will be sending you mails on the webinars that are coming up. But discussion is not fruitful if we are not really implementing it. So the way we want to do it is we are going to create policy documents based on the discussion that we are having in our webinars. We will be sharing it with all the countries, with all the participants that are joining our webinars. And IFAD, being our funder, I believe IFAD will be taking note of the discussion and the suggestions that are coming up. And I think, that's where the value would be, that we'd be taking up this discussion to interventions. The network is going to offer some interesting trainings in coming days. We already planned for these online trainings, but we wanted to reflect on the training offers, and we believe it's now time to think about how our trainings can support you in this crisis period to reorient your interventions. So the Value Chain Capacity Building Network will get back to you on our offers and how we'll be partnering with you on taking this forward and mitigating the risks that are coming up on the agriculture value chains across the region and in the world. So having said that, I thank you all for joining us today, and I thank you all for participating and for your active listening. So thank you, everyone, wherever you are. I wish you a very safe with days ahead. So let us all be safe. Let us keep safe. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for organizing this event. On behalf of IFAD, thank you very much for organizing this event and for attending it. So it was a real pleasure. Looking forward to the next seminar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will end the meeting.